Hi, welcome to another episode of At Large in America. Today we are in Stowe, Maine, and we're going to be talking about some really interesting wildlife photography issues. So I'm Carolyn Grimm, and my co-host Mike Corthell is behind the camera right now. Hopefully we'll get him in the picture at some point so you know he still exists. So I'm here today with Michelle Luongo and Joe Shaw, and we're going to be talking about wildlife photography, the do's and don'ts. So Michelle, if you'd like to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Absolutely. My name is Michelle Luongo, and I'm based out here in Stowe, Maine. I'm a wildlife photographer, studio photographer. There's probably nothing I haven't shot out there yet. But something that we're seeing out there now, today, everybody has a phone.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has some source of a camera. So a lot of the unethical practices that go on in wildlife photography are actually happening more and more now. And it's hard to see. And it doesn't mean they're bad people. It's they're uneducated and maybe the 2% that are callous. So I think what I wanted to do was get the word out there, and have people, lead by example,
Terrific.
If, every wildlife photographer out there loves wildlife, and that's why we're doing this. So if you love it, you gotta have a conscience, and you just gotta really pay attention to what you're doing.
Fantastic. So Joe, give us the Joe 101.
Well, I just started at the University of Maine at Machias in the biology program with a concentration in wildlife biology. And this summer I started getting into wildlife photography, and I started to notice some of the unethical things that other photographers were doing and posting on social media. And I was just looking to see how can we stop this, or how we can educate the public about safely photographing wildlife for not just the people but for the animals as well.
And I think we've all probably seen some of the videos of people who have been taking selfies of wildlife, and the wildlife has died as a result of it.
Yes.
So that's one of the things that we want
Wyoming.
to avoid.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Michelle, would you like to start talking about some of those do's and don'ts?
I'd love to. I actually wrote them all down so I wouldn't forget anything either. Gotta take those off first. So, one of the big things is crowding wildlife. There's a snowy owl. We know the time of season, they're migrating through. Everybody wants a picture of the snowy owl. Nothing wrong with that. But you gotta do it the right way. If you see there's 15 people around that owl, you'll notice most of them are gonna be quite a bit back, a good distance. And there's a reason for that. They're migrating. They need every ounce of energy that they have. Some people will go up and try to startle them on purpose to get that great flying shot. Well, I'll tell you, you're gonna get called on about that because it's unethical. That bird could die because you wanted that picture. So you gotta really, and like I said, it doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means you didn't know. You didn't know that they're saving their energy. So that's one of the big things there. So, and somebody brought something up that was really neat, and I never would have thought of. Because I will say something if I see this, and everybody else should also. But one lady offered her camera to the person who was trying to run up with a phone to take a picture of it. So that person would at least have a picture that they took. Very nice idea, great idea. It's a nice way to open the door to education. Another thing is nest and dens. If you're photographing a nest, I mean, sometimes you'll see babies really up close, and it's really, you wonder how the person got that close, and then you'll see people doing it. You can't get that close to the nest because the bird's going to abandon the nest. They're going to feel threatened, and they're going to leave. And that's an awful thing. If you spot a nest, get a zoom lens. That's the do's of photography.
Yeah.
Get a nice big zoom lens where you can zoom in safely. The animal is protected. You're not scaring it. You're safe. You know what I mean? Because a bird can peck your eye out, and it does happen. Another thing is calling wildlife. That's awful too. It might seem harmless. You're calling in a moose. It's mating season. You're waiting for that big bull to come out so you can get that great picture. Guess what? That moose needs to go breed. It's breeding season. And especially in this area now where the moose population is severely down, that moose needs to be let go. Let them go find a mate. Let them do their thing. You calling a fox in. that fox is taking the risk coming to you, leaving its den, leaving the kits behind, open to predators, and now that fox has to go back, no mouse, no squirrel, nothing for the kits. So everything that you do in wildlife photography impacts the wildlife. So you have to be very conscientious about it. Another one would be, your nocturnal animals. Again, owls, they have very sensitive eyes. Don't use flashes on them. No. Oh, the biggest one that really eats me is baiting. You don't bait wildlife. And there's many reasons why. First of all, for the animal, they don't eat the same food we eat. So by you giving them, a can of SpaghettiOs or something like that, they're going to get sick, and that happens. Baiting, you're going to make the animal come back for more. So you could possibly have an open attack on yourself. If it's a bear or a coyote, your pets. So that's something you really want to keep in mind. And then also, say if it is a bear that you're feeding, that bear goes to somebody else's house, it doesn't have fear now. 9 times out of 10, that bear's going to be destroyed. And there's no reason for that. So you have to respect wildlife. Besides, if you want to go out there and you want that killer shot that's going to get you noticed, and that's why most people put these things on Facebook, besides the joy and love of wildlife. But you have to be careful because it's wrong. You can't simply do it. Just don't feed the animals. There's so many bad things that can happen. Conway last year, I think it was 7 bears. And not all were full adults either.
Yeah.
And that was sad. That was hard. And it was all from people feeding them. You just got to be careful out there. I mean, you can have an animal try to break in your house too.
Yeah.
But you're going to cause the animal's demise. So it's always best, like I said, you stay back. Have a zoom lens. That's a big help. Because it's protecting the animal. It's protecting you. You don't want to leave any footprint out there. None whatsoever. So it's really important. It's really the word we want to get out there. And, lead by example.
Yeah.
You want that beautiful picture. Be proud of it. You don't want to take a picture of a moose or a deer or a bear because you just fed it something. That's nothing to be proud of. That's hurting the animal. You want to take that picture. You sat there for 4 hours. You seen this beautiful moose come out into the sunset. That's the picture you want to be proud of. And it shows in your work.
So, Joe, you mentioned that you're going to the University of Maine at Machias.
Yep.
I am a graduate of the University of Maine at Machias, so I know the area very well. Tell us about the wildlife in Washington County, Maine.
I'll tell you, my first day on campus, there were 3 deer in the parking lot where I went to park my car by Dorward Hall, the upperclassmen dorm. The wildlife up there, it seems untouched. You're seeing deer everywhere, eagles. I've yet to see a bear or a moose up there, but I'm confident.
Give it time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's just such an opportunity to see wildlife in that area.
So what's the difference in the ecosystem between this part of the state and that part of the state? What's different up there?
By looking at the businesses and houses in Washington County, particularly in Machias, it seems that more steps are being taken to prevent wildlife encounters, like problematic bears. Over in here where I grew up, it seems that the steps aren't really being taken. I see businesses, particularly in like the Conway area, where the dumpster lids are left open, and I saw a sow and 2 or 3 cubs climbing in the dumpsters. And this is in a busy area, and it just seems it kind of irks me a little bit.
Yeah, because you have a mother bear that's going to be protective of her cubs too.
Right.
So of course, someone who doesn't understand a bear is going to try to get close and let's take a selfie with the bear and cubs, and that's a disaster waiting to happen.
And believe me, I've just starting wildlife photography this summer. I've had times where I've wanted to get really close to a certain animal, but you just gotta I stop and I go, okay, this wouldn't be the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So I get my photo, but then I look at that animal in awe and appreciate it.
Yep.
And I feel better about it too.
Yeah, and I think
That's a
one
good
of the
feeling.
things that we have now is we've got kind of maybe a Disney mentality when it comes to wildlife. We're so used to the friendly little animals and Snow White and skipping around.
Right.
And, I was at the Okefenokee Swamp in Georgia, where there are alligators loose everywhere. And there were people who were letting their little kids tease the alligators, like run up to the alligators and then run back. I had to leave.
I just
It
got
was
the
just hor-
goosebumps.
Exactly, it's horrifying.
Oh.
You know, they don't understand that animals are,
Wild.
they're wild.
Yes.
An alligator is just a primitive eating machine.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any distinction between little Johnny and
And
a
food.
chicken. It
Yeah.
doesn't-
And they're not out to kill you. That's their natural history.
Yeah.
It's
Survival.
Survival.
Yep,
So,
survival's-
exactly. Yep.
And one of the things that you mentioned was that the importance of animals conserving their energy.
Mhm.
It takes a tremendous amount of work in the wild to make a living.
Yep.
To
Yes.
find a place that's safe for nesting, and then just the procreation piece of it, you know, laying eggs or having young, and then keeping them alive to perpetuate the species, and then feeding yourself every day. It's a huge, huge amount of work.
It's
Just,
a lot.
you know, there was something I read online about, well, if, you see an animal and you really want to get a good shot, like a facial shot, stand up and wave your arms. That is not the right way to do it, because that animal is either, if it's a carnivore, it's either fight or flight.
Yeah.
And either way, it's going to exert a lot of wasted energy that it needs to survive.
Especially throughout the winter.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a harsh time of year, especially up in Machias.
Mhm.
Burr.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, the Washington County area is so interesting to me because you've got the ocean right there. I mean, you
Yep.
cannot get away from the ocean in
Yeah.
that part of the state. It's right
and
there.
you walk 20 feet in, and you're in a different ecosystem altogether.
Completely different.
That's
and
pretty
then
cool.
you've got
It's amazing.
blueberry barrens and the great haith, the great haith.
Yeah.
So it's a tremendous place to study wildlife.
Yep.
I didn't know that when I was up there. I was, in a different point of my life, so I didn't really understand all that. But we are so fortunate in Maine and New Hampshire and Vermont especially, because we have so much wildlife, so much nature just outside the door.
Yep.
And I know so many people that literally can walk out their door and be in the woods. I mean, we can, where we are
Yeah.
in Bridgeton, which is a very settled town. We've got deer, we've got skunks, we've got porcupines, they all come through the yard, so we're really fortunate in that we can see things like that just outside the door. Of course, we've got the White Mountain National Forest, which is amazing.
Mhm.
So have you ever been in a situation where you were photographing wildlife and you felt like you were in danger?
Yes. Twice.
Were you in danger from animals or people?
Animals. No, it was one. I do a lot of wildlife photography from my kayak with my big lens, and there was one time, I had seen a moose. I saw a moose, so I decided to go further up a river and get out at a safe distance to photograph her. Well, I didn't know she followed. She must have been curious. So as I pulled up to a little sandbar, I went to get out of the kayak, and boom, there she was looking at me, and I was like, and I paddled, a pretty good way distance, so I had no idea. I went right out of the kayak. The only thing I held up in the air was the camera, of course. Save the camera. That I did the same thing upriver with a bear. That was a scary one because that was, she had a cub with her.
Yeah.
I came around the corner, we just collided around the corner. And it was, actually my camera saved my life. Because my bear spray was in my pocket, and I would never want to use bear spray.
Yeah.
Because I never intended to be that close. But we just came around the corner and collided, and the only thing I could do was I just lifted my camera up and I snapped the flash on, and it startled her. It took her out of the zone she was in, which was probably ready to eat me.
Yeah.
And she flew with the cub, and I sat in that spot for a half an hour. I didn't move.
And that's really Mike and I do a tremendous amount of hiking, and that's the one thing hiking in this area that always concerns me is a mother bear with cubs, because, boy, or a big moose that doesn't recognize that I'm a human.
Yeah.
That would be the only thing.
It can, well, they say a moose, you find the smallest stand of trees.
Yeah.
where those antlers can't get you, that big rack. But yeah, the bears, you know, it is a scary one. It's the first time it's happened to me, and it was eye-opening,
Yeah.
you know. I bless my camera every day because I know, the look I seen in her eye, I knew something was gonna happen. And I had to act fast, and, you know, that was it. That was my reaction.
How about you, Joe? You ever run into anything scary in the woods?
Not really. You know, I've come across a lot of bear and moose, but a lot of them just seem to take off.
Yeah.
I don't know if they were scared of my red hair or not.
Or just the size of you, probably.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, crashed through the bush. I think the worst thing that's happened to me out there was poison ivy. I'd rather run into a bear than run into poison ivy, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, you know,
Not
that's
fun
actually
stuff.
another good point. When you're out in the wilderness doing doing photography shoots, you know, you're so intent on what you're looking at through the camera lens that you may miss some important things.
I was laying in ticks.
Oh.
Thousands of ticks, and I
Oh.
didn't know it for about 20 minutes. It was one of those shots I was setting up for. There was a big buck that kept coming through this area, up a gully and up on a rise, and that's where the sun set. And I said, that's going to be an awesome picture.
Mm-hmm.
I was there the whole entire day. I was covered in DEET, because I do use DEET all the time.
Yeah.
Very important to do when you're doing
Yeah.
wildlife photography. Don't mess with Lyme disease, that's awful. Covered in DEET, I got my camera, I'm ready, you know, and I'm just laying down in this gully, and I'm waiting for that sun to come down. It was hours. And I just happened to look down, because I felt the little and I went, oh my God, there's thousands of ticks under me. And I'm like, do I wait for the shot? Well, you're here now. You might as well just keep staying here. Just forget you even noticed it. I knew I was all right because I was covered in DEET, so I'm like, and then here came the buck. The
Oh.
sun was going down. The buck went up the rise.
Wow.
This was a learning lesson as a wildlife photographer. I went to take the picture. The battery was dead.
Oh no.
So all those ticks for nothing.
Laid
That was a
there
hairy
all those
moment.
Ticks and your battery was dead.
Yep.
Well, that's
That was a learning lesson.
part of the excitement of
Yep.
wildlife photography.
Yep. And that was years ago. So another good tip: have another battery with you, always. I'll never do that again.
Now talk to us about what you use for equipment. Because you were giving young Joe some good advice earlier.
Yes.
You don't have it with you, that's okay.
I have
You have
Nikon.
an assistant.
Yeah, there we go. Yay!
Mike to the rescue.
Coffee too.
Oh, look, you're gonna get to see that
I
it
knew
really
I'd
does
get
still
on
exist.
camera.
There we go.
There you go.
Thank you. That's my baby.
Hi, everybody.
Don't drop it, for crying out loud.
So, this one is the D750. This is a full frame camera. I actually meant to put the D500 on here. So I use a D500, which is a DX crop, compared to an FX crop. Your FX, you know, you're getting the whole scene. In a nutshell, an easy way to say it, this is a moose. This is your FX. This is your DX. DX. And this is a 600 millimeter lens. This is a nice lens to use for wildlife photography. This keeps the animals safe.
Hmm.
This keeps me safe. I don't want to stress the wildlife. I don't want to leave any footprint on them at all. And it's perfectly fine to want to do nature photography and wildlife photography. Just do it wisely, do it the right way. And this keeps, you know, it's a good weight. So I'll tell you, I have a lot of shoulder muscles now. But it's a beautiful camera and it keeps everybody happy.
So if I want to get started in wildlife photography, I should go out and get this right here?
No, I would not start with this, no, because it adds up pretty quick.
Yeah.
This is probably 3, 4, 5, 6, a little over 6, 7 grand. So you have to make sure you do like it, you do want to do it, and progress slowly at it.
Yeah.
Never ever rush it. You don't want, because if you rush it, you're going to miss something, and that's not good. A lot of people think they can just run out, buy expensive camera equipment, and we're photographers now, and it doesn't work that way. You got to learn your camera. Your camera is a tool. And it's very simple to learn once you get the 3 basic components, which is your shutter speed, your aperture, and your ISO. Once you have that figured out and you're in manual mode, the sky's the limit. You can do anything you want to do, but it takes time to get there. So I always tell people, practice on smaller cameras first. Also, you don't want to find out you actually don't like it anymore, it was just a passing fancy, and now you're stuck with equipment, which ages quickly now,
Yeah.
like laptops. I mean, they're, you know, who even uses laptops anymore, you know?
I do.
I know, I do too. We're talking our age bracket.
What's a laptop?
See?
Tablets now.
I have mine in the corner of the house somewhere.
So what's your favorite picture that you ever took?
Oh, that's hard. Oh, my favoriteest one, which was something that was really different. I'm gonna have your assistant grab it in a moment.
Oh,
But it was a beautiful shot of an eagle looking down into the water,
okay.
looking at himself.
Wow.
And it was one, and it's not your typical eagle shots like you have here, you know, holding fish. Here's a moose with a wood duck flying by at the same time. That was an amazing shot. That was one of my favorite ones too.
Which one do you want me to get? I'm back on.
Oh, I'm sorry. On my desk actually, you'll see a picture there of an eagle. It's just a print.
Is it over here?
God bless you.
And here.
I think that'd be the one.
There you go.
This is actually one of my favorites.
Oh, wow.
Have you ever seen an eagle picture
No.
like this?
No, I've never
It's
seen
just-
anything like that.
It was
That is so
amazing. And I'll tell you what, this is not the shot I thought I was getting. And I sat this day in the sun, it was a little over 100 degrees, and I sat there for 6 hours. The bugs, the flies, the heat, were all worth it. Because when would you ever see that again?
That's
You know what I mean? And I don't know if I'll ever see that
One in a
again.
trillion.
Yep, it's just a totally different, it's a totally different picture. But it's amazing. I actually did a nice metal print of this for my husband, because he loves this one too. Because it's just one of those poses.
That's a great
It's, yeah, you
picture.
know, it's,
Yeah.
you know, like I said, you can have pictures of them flying and stuff, but actually looking in the water.
Never seen anything like it. No, you always see them flying or catching a fish.
Mm-hmm.
So this is fantastic. I
Yep.
love it.
It was quite a different shot. Definitely one of my favorites. Oh, and I love their calling. Oh, when I hear those calls and that chatter, oh, my heart pitter-patters. It's a beautiful thing, but yeah, that was a nice shot. I do like the one with the moose and the duck too. That was pretty unique.
Yeah.
That was a good happening by.
So
Got
Joe,
photo bombed.
Cool.
Yeah.
Joe, what do you hope to do once you've graduated from college?
Well, I'd like to do some field work in the biology scene and also work in the lab.
Mm-hmm.
But on the side, I hope to become a professional wildlife photographer.
Good.
And by listening to Michelle, and she's been a great teacher for me, and watching David Attenborough, like BBC's Blue Planet, and watching Wild America, and from Marty Stauffer, it really inspires me. So,
I grew up
That's
watching Marty Stauffer a long
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
I got the red hair.
Mutual
so
of
far, so-
Omaha.
Yeah, the Wild Kingdom. Yeah, yeah.
Yep. I used to watch that all the time with my dad. All the time.
Yeah, and I think there's a tremendous need for those kinds of shows because
Yeah.
it shows you what the rest of the world is up
Yeah.
to.
It seems like we're getting into a lot of reality show, which sometimes, while you're studying, it does help to watch a reality show.
Yeah.
But it's nice to just kind of sit and this is what we have right outside our door,
Yeah.
and that's what I hope to do in the future. So
Yeah, and it's something that we're kind of losing too. So it's kind of you got to find that balance now. Before it's too late, because
Yeah.
they're saying this is supposed to be the biggest year for species disappearing too,
Yeah.
which is
over the next few, it's gonna be a real test for wildlife, and
it's got to start with us.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. And anyone who, take it from me, anyone who wants to get into wildlife photography, at first learn the basics of the camera, but also learn animal behavior.
Yeah.
Go online, and because the internet is a that's been a huge help for me, especially in Machias. You know, learning about all the animals and stuff.
There are also things called books.
Yeah, I mean, just learn animal behavior first.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
Yeah.
Especially if you want to go shoot something, if you want to go photograph something in particular that you're going for, then look for its environment. 'Cause if you know the animal, you're going to know the environment. And when you're out there photographing, look around. You'll see what's around.
Yeah.
You know, look at the scat that's out there. You'll find scat and you'll know what's coming out there.
Get a track book. Learn different scats. Learn different tracks. of
Yeah,
animals.
learn the tracking and, you know, and you may not come back with that big one, but there's a lot of other good things out there too. You can see a beautiful fisher cat, you know, your bobcats.
Yep.
And,
And it gets you out there. It gets you out in nature. And that was, you know, growing up, I've always wanted to work at a zoo because I've always wanted to be around animals. But over the past few months, I've really grown in effect of, you know, just taking a picture of that animal. And I feel like that's, I don't know, I feel,
you can do something with that.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and I can show people, like, this is what we have.
The pleasure
And
of educating.
And the education piece of it, that's exactly where I was gonna go. It's so incredibly important that we have shows that teach us about the world and what's going on all around us, and that we have people that will take the time and be dedicated to really educating people about things like wildlife photography, everything that's involved, doing it safely and ethically.
Yep.
And then people that are educators when it comes to all of the science behind it. Because it's fascinating, it's an amazing world we have.
Yep.
Amazing world. And once you
beautiful world.
really start to understand that, then you're gonna take care of it. Because you're gonna be like, wow, I don't wanna, you know, mess up that deer's environment there by, you know, turning it into a tire dump.
Exactly. Or you drove your truck through it and you just killed,
Yeah.
you know, so many amphibians,
Yeah.
their environment.
Yeah.
So there's a lot you got to think of when you're out there. It's really, and like I said, it's really just educating.
And
People just don't think.
I interned at the Maine Wildlife Park in Gray
Mm.
for 3 years, and I was doing talks at the bear enclosure and talking about, you know, proper bear safety, and it was amazing how many people were like, oh wow, we didn't know about taking the bird feeders down between April and November.
Yeah.
Even though it gets a lot of your real fancy birds out there, you're attracting that bear, which could cause a problem.
You're also attracting raccoons.
Raccoons, yeah, yeah.
We've had a couple of really big fat ones up on the porch several times. Well, fantastic. So, I think for me, the big takeaway for this whole episode is about enjoying wildlife,
Yep.
Yep.
capturing it in a way that doesn't destroy it,
Yes.
and then teaching everybody else what an amazing world we live in.
Yeah, it's a beautiful world.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I see Joe coming out more and more. I think Joe's going to do a lot of good.
Oh, don't make me blush.
But I think we're going to do some excursions this year when you're out of school.
Yeah.
You know, getting right out there in the field with
Yes.
the camera, and it's really, it's rewarding. It's so rewarding.
It just go. You know, I have a little Canon Power Shot that I just bought and my starter camera, and just getting out there and photographing anything from like a small grasshopper to, you know, snapping turtles laying eggs. It just gives you this. You really can't describe it, and that's when you know that this is what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
You know.
That's a beautiful thing.
It's so cool.
And I'm so glad I know you.
Me too.
It's awesome.
I'm glad I know you.
Okay,
That
well,
is a
we are
good-
gonna, go
That
ahead.
is a good way to leave it, and I'm gonna do the sign off,
Okay, wow.
because I'm operating the camera.
Here we go.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today on this episode of At Large in America, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.